hey, this is Dr. Kit again. And I just want to thank you for being online with me again tonight. This is the Shake Up, of course, 6 p.m. Every Monday evening. All right. So we're here, just shake it up. We don't change the structure. We just reframe things so that you can get a different understanding of that which you thought. In other words, we're looking for the story behind the story. All right. And there's always a story behind the story. So I'm just so glad that you're here with me this evening. And, this evening I'm going to do something just a little bit different. And I'll tell you why. Over the many years that I've been doing this kind of work, it's not just a mental health field, but it's also working with people in a variety of areas that are associated with the mental health field. And of course, over the last 20 years or so, I've been working almost specifically with individual, family, and marriage counseling, But tonight I want to do something just a little bit different because, it just came to me that I might need to do this and get some good audience participation with this as much as possible. Over the years, I've done a lot of work with grieving people who are grieving but don't know they are grieving, people who abort the grieving process by doing other things that distract them from that, and yet still going through all the pain that is associated with it, and that will always be there unless we do something about it. So, and also, here recently we've been having a lot of school shootings and just senseless killings in our society, in our communities across the country. And I just thought, man, there must be a lot of hurting, grieving people around. And of course, this is not something that a lot of people like to deal with because it just brings back too much, but I'm still of the mind that I'm going to go through with this evening. So I'm going to be running solo all by myself. But what I would like for you to do is to do nothing different from before. Put your questions in, make your suggestions, talk about your own experiences, all of that, and we'll address them as we go through. Now, this is like a 4-part session that I'll be doing. And tonight, the first part is almost like an introduction to this. So we may not get too deep into the grieving process. And all of us are grieving. So this introduction just kind of set it up, what is grief and so on. Just there's some different things that we need to look at that will open up the door to what grieving is and why grieving. Okay, so that's where I am this evening, but I still want you to be a part of this. So you know what you got to do. We do it every week. All right. You got to like it. All right. And then you got to, follow, share, subscribe, like, follow, share, subscribe, pick up the phone and call somebody even right now, like, follow, share, and subscribe, because this is a very, very important topic, subject matter that I'll be dealing with tonight. And again, I want to have your, excuse me. I want to have your input, because I'm dealing with something that all of us have had to deal with at some point in our lives. Okay, so like, follow, share, and subscribe, and in the future, if you would like to be a part of this program, part of this show, just email drkitspeaks@gmail.com. My team will get with you, and we will get you on either on camera or off camera. But we just need to have you just be on the program and share what you have. And you never want to think that what you have to share is not important. You never want to downplay yourself. Everybody's got something important. Why? When you share your experience can never be wrong. And so therefore come from an experiential point of view, and we will, and you'll do just fine. Just fine. Okay. And so here we go. We're going to kick it off. I'm here by myself, and you're going to see now. We're going to put it up what we're talking about this evening. We're talking about the grieving experience. Okay. And this is going to be a 4 parts series, and it's starting today. The grieving experience. And so we're going to move to the next slide. And again, don't forget to put your information, put it up on the chat. We like to see you and talk with you, okay? Grief. And so there's a definition that I'm working with for grief. It is the anguish experienced after significant loss, usually the death of a loved one. I want to say this here, right here and now, that even though most of us associate grief with death, there is more to it. Grief often includes physiological distress. When we go through things that debilitate us, and it slows us down, and we can't do what we need to do when we want to do it. And so we discover that we have a mission in mind, but physiologically, we're sick, or we found ourselves in a place where we have an injury, and we cannot go through what we're going through because we have a problem. All right. So just give me a second here. Okay. And so yeah, we tend to think it's about death, but it's about more. It's more than that. Okay. Grief often includes physiological distress, separation, anxiety. When you are, when you grew up with somebody, and this person is very, very important to you. Okay. And the person is no longer available to you. The degree to which you were dependent on that person, it means that you cannot have that part of you fulfilled like you used to. It creates distress and separation anxiety, confusion. What do I do now when I'm going through this loss? The yearning, the obsessive dwelling on the past. When you find yourself doing those things, you know that you're going through grief, but a lot of us don't want to talk and call it grief, okay? And apprehension about the future. All of these are signs of grief. And, intense grief can become life-threatening disruption of the immune system. So in other words, listen, if you go through intense grief, and it gets to the point where it slows you down, or you cannot function like you used to. You're not thinking like you used to. You're not actively doing what you need, what you need to do. And when you find yourself unable to even comprehend or you understand what's going on with you, and other people around you, then you know that that your mind is now compounded with other things, other issues that can distract you away from yourself. So you need then to understand that it is more than having the death of a person. Okay. So it can become a life-threatening disruption to the immune system. Self-neglect. You can get into self-neglect. Self-neglect, it covers a broad area, in that some self-neglect you can see. You can see when a person is not taking care of themselves physically. You can tell by the clothes they wear. You can tell by their affect. You can tell, by where they go. You can tell by who they're hanging out with. You can do all of these things. Self-neglect, when you begin to question and say things like, well, that person has changed. I wonder if something is going on with that person. That could be a sign of self-neglect. And then it can lead to where there might even be some suicidal thoughts. Now, suicidal thoughts is not unusual for a lot of people who are going through this grief process. Now, remember, for those of you that are just coming on, this is just the first part of a 4-part series. I'm doing this by myself because I think this is important, and this is kind of an introductory phase of it this week, tonight. Okay, but please don't forget to put your stuff. All right, so 65240. Yes, thank you so much. So are you saying that losing your job can cause you to grieve as opposed to just being sad? Absolutely, yes. Why is that so important? I think of this question, by the way, beautiful question. Losing your job, for some people, and I'm going to tell you, I'm not necessarily talking about you or anybody, I'm just talking about general. For some people, their job gives them a meaning to the self of who they are. We get that a lot. All right. If you worked at a prestigious university and you were on staff or board of many different organizations, but you're on that because you work at this prestigious university and you are like at the top notch in this. Well, if you lose your job, okay, what do you think is going to happen? The prestige that you had that was accrued to you because of the position that you held, okay, that will now be gone. And so your sense of who you are, your picture of yourself will be diminished, and you begin to grieve that part of you that is no longer available to you, that you receive because of your attachment to your job, and the degree to which the attachment to your job gave you a good sense of who you are, gave you a good picture of yourself. And so yeah, it can cause you to go through grief, sadness. As a matter of fact, I've known people who, when they've been laid off from their job that they've been at for 30, 40 years, they've been laid off, and they say through no fault of their own. What happens here is that they start to do things like drinking, right? Using other types of drugs. I call those things like anesthesia. Anesthesia. Now, you do know that anesthesia does not take your pain away. What anesthesia does, it reorganizes your system, your system, so that you can't feel the pain that is there. The last time I went to the dentist, he was doing some stuff in my mouth. It felt like he had a big old drill going on inside there, but he did a good job, by the way, did a good job. Just in case my dentist is listening, you did a really good job, sir. But what happened was, he said, I got to numb your gums. But he said, before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put something on here that is going to kind of start the process of numbing the gums, so that when I give you the medication, you won't feel the needle so much. And when he started, he started working. You say, listen, how's it going? So he'd ask me, and as as the medication started to take effect, it was going up and up and up. What happened here was my pain discomfort started to go down. So medication goes up, pain goes down. But the pain is still there. How do I know? Because when the medication start to wear off, I can feel the pain that was there all along. And so it is. Yes, in when it comes to grieving, you can grieve the loss of a job. It is not necessarily having to do anything to do with death. Grief, the core of why people grieve is not specific, in any way, but it is specific to the person. And here it is. This is the reason why. It is because of the loss of a meaningful person, place, or thing to which you have a deep attachment to it. And the attachment gives you a sense of belonging, a sense of self, So therefore, it is important for you to feel that there are other people out there. But then, you got to be careful that you don't depend on them to give you a sense of self. Who you are should come from the inside. On the inside. And so the grieving that you go through is, and you'll hear more about this as we go through, is not necessarily grieving what was lost, but grieving the part of you that is no longer available to you because of the loss. Okay. All right. So let me see what else we're going to talk about here on this slide. Okay. Grief may also take the form of a regret over past behavior, things you should have done that you didn't. That's omission. Things you did that you should not have done. That is commission. So when we get these kind of feelings, so I'm just laying it out, the broad level here of what. And by the way, this is coming from the American Psychological Association. This is my time working with their definition of what grief is. Okay, let's move on to the next slide and see what else we got going on over there. All major losses are important. All major losses are important. So when people say to you, "What, man, you're going to cry over that?" Yes, cry over that. Why? Because to them, it's not a major loss. But to you, it's a major loss because the loss is your experience, not just losing a figure. You're losing an experience. And when you lose that part of your experience, you lose a part of yourself. So what you do, you grieve all major losses. Don't let anybody talk you out of it. You grieve all of those. Okay. All right, Tracy. Thank you, Tracy. The inability to have children can also be a trigger for grief and a sense of loss. Absolutely, Tracy. Yes. Why? Because if there is a part of your life that is tied into having children, if you don't have children, that piece of you that want to have children and don't have children will never be able to be activated. And if you can't activate that, then you have a sense of loss. Not only that, if you don't have children, then you can't go to Mama's Day Out. You can't go to Mama's Day at the park. And you have a lot of friends who go. So now that separates you from them because you don't have a child to go with. And there's a whole lot of things. Also, just the sense of you having somebody who is a part of you, living and touching and just being there with you. This, Tracy, is a big issue, the inability to have children. And so because of the inability to have children, as opposed to the decision not to have children, there is a difference. A decision not to have children is when you have worked it out. You said, because of something about me, I have decided, or we have decided not to have children. But your inability, what happens here is that you don't have any control over your inability, or very little control over your inability to have children. And that changes you, because now you're saying to yourself, if I have children, I will get to see myself like this. I will get to experience myself like this. And when you can do that, you have this different picture of yourself. But when you can't have children, it's quite possible that you begin to berate yourself and ask yourself questions like, what's wrong with me? The question should not be what's wrong with me, because then you are downgrading yourself. If you're ever going to ask a question about yourself, never ask, why can I not have children? The question should be, what is it about me that is not allowing me to have children? What is it about me? So you're no longer downgrading yourself. You are now looking for a reason within the self. And when you look and you find the reason, you go to professionals, and they help you to find the reasons. They walk you through the reasons why you cannot have children. Now you're not looking at yourself as less than anybody else. You can look at yourself as saying, I have something that they don't have, which allows them to have children, but it does not allow me to have children. I am not worse than they are. I'm just different. Why? Because they got something that you don't have. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So there are some things about them that they wish they didn't have. So we all have things about us that we wish we didn't have. So Tracy, yeah, the inability to have children can also be a trigger for grief. Especially when other people are asking you, well, when you're going to, hey, listen, when's that baby coming along? Well, they just don't know. They don't know any of that stuff, what's going on inside you, see, because they're looking at your behavior. They're looking at your what, when, where, why, and how, but you are having an experience of yourself. And no one's experience is wrong. No one can tell you that your experience is wrong. Your experience is absolutely accurate. It is not subject to the rubrics of science. Therefore, when you find yourself with a situation where you can't have children, it's no different from, you got different hair color, you got different size, your nose is different, your ears are different. Everything about you is so different, but we don't talk about those things like that. And we just don't want you to get to the place, where you lose your self-importance. We don't want that to happen, okay? So loss produced grief. Thank you. Really good question. Loss produced grief. Grief has become an integral part of our human experience. Grief. So in other words, what I'm saying, people grieve things, but don't even know they're grieving. And sometimes when they're grieving, what they do, they act out this grief in anger. Yeah. They get angry and they project their anger onto other people. Because if they project it onto the self, then they might be headed down the road of suicidal thoughts, because you want to hurt yourself. When you project your anger onto somebody else, I call that the homicidal level of this, where people outside of you get hurt. Okay, so coping with loss. All right. Each of us will face some sorrow, disappointment, and critical enduring ending of life experience, along with associated pain. So all losses, every loss that is important, will engender or create some level of pain. And how you handle it, everybody handles that differently. Let's go to the next slide and see what we got going on over there. We must, thank you, we must learn to face and deal with losses and all its attending feeling. So in other words, when if you lose a particular thing, say, I don't want to go talking about anything in specific because I don't want to trigger anybody. All right. If you lose something that is very important to you, all right, then it looks like this. Listen, So this is my iPad. If I lose my iPad and I can't find my iPad and I got all my important stuff on it, I'm going to go into grief. I'm going to go into grief. And then somebody comes on and say, yo, what's going on, man? And I'm just so stoic, man. I don't want to talk to nobody because my mind is on everything that is on my iPad. So I don't want to talk to anybody. So what it does, it creates me now acting out my grief that I've internalized, and other people can't get in touch with me because they want to get in touch with me because we're friends. And if they can't get in touch with me, they call me or they see me, that, all this kind of stuff. What happens here, because I'm so focused on my loss. Okay, now they are having a loss because I'm not available to them. I'm not available to them. So yeah, they will now have their own loss because I'm focused on my own loss. You understand what I'm saying here? So yeah, these things can happen. Next, let's go back, to the slide. And okay, but LNG, what advice would you give to a person who loves to work, but due to health issues must retire? Great question. A person who loves to work. This is a person who loves to give of themselves in whatever area their work is. And this happens, a lot more in the area where we're working with people. When you're working with people, there is this interplay between them. You can see on their face, you can see how much you're inputting into their lives. You can hear them tell you about it. You can see their faces. But let me tell you that sometimes when you do your best work, I'm going to say it. Sometimes when you do your best work in the healthcare business and the person still dies, sometimes some of us will internalize that and say and do an autopsy on everything that we ever did and say, what else could I have done? Well, maybe you did all that you could. Maybe you did all that you could. But anyway, back to this. Due to health reasons. Well, again, your health is something that you need to say, because of the quality of my health, I cannot do some things that in my head I would like to do and I want to do, but my health is getting in the way. It's retarding me. It's stopping me from achieving my goals. And so because of that, I must retire. Now, the question is, when I was doing all this work, I had a good sense of who I am. It gave me a good picture. I was this artist that painted my picture. You know how it is. I go to work every day, man. I just enjoy going to work. I see smiles on people's face. An engineer may say, I love going to work because I love to see structural things growing. A pilot will say, I love the idea of taking people from one place to the other. The school bus driver, we had a lot of good stories about school bus drivers. They say, listen, I just love those kids. They're my kids. They don't belong to the parents anymore while they're on my bus. So we get all of these things begin to flow into our minds and create a sense of who we are. So when you retire, not because you plan to retire or you want to retire, your whole picture of yourself changes. The whole thing changes, especially if doing the job was not just doing a job. It was a part of your who-ness. Who am I? Who am I? And where does my job, where does it fit into the, my sense of who I am, my picture of who I am? Where does it fit? And now that I can't work, my whole vision of myself will change. Because, when you're doing what you like, you said, you can have a lot of conversations with a lot of people that and then when you meet new people for the first time, say, hey, how you doing? You go down through that and say, well, what'd you do? Man, I'm this and I'm that, and I just love my job. You retire because you have to, not because you want to. Now you are grieving on the inside because your whole sense of who you are has changed beyond your control. And now you must grieve that. Otherwise, if you don't, you begin to live in the past, for a long, long time and never recover that from that, and that can be a pretty dangerous thing. So what do? You get help. Get help. Okay. All right. Let's see. Thank you for that, LNG. All right. All right. So let's take a look at that. As we journey through our painful experiences, we must tap into our I-ness, resilience, and capacity to survive. The question is, who am I? And your I-ness, I call it your I-ness. I'm killing the English language. So you teachers out there, don't get mad with me. Yeah, I'm killing the English language. Your I-ness is that part of you that is different from everybody else on the planet. Everybody's got a unique I-ness, like your fingerprint. It is unique. It is irreplicable. You cannot replicate this. You cannot do that. And so because you can't do that, it means then we must face all of these things as we go through life. Your I-ness then says, who am I? And it's not because you're a mother, a father, a brother, or a sister. Those are descriptions. Those are what, when, where, why, how. Those things, okay? But your I-ness is that thing that makes you different from everybody else in the world. And it is your experience of yourself. Make sure that in everything you do, your experience of yourself, okay, is never compromised. Because if you do, then you will be looking at somebody else's behavior, wishing and hoping that you could have their behavior and make it your experience of yourself. Well, I'm so sorry. Experience is not transferable either. It is not. It's just is not. So you dive into who you are. And the thing about this here is acceptance. Acceptance. So accept who you are. Okay, let's take a look at another slide right here. Moving creates a whole huge loss. Moving, the impact on children and family. Moving to a new community is one of the most stress-producing event a child or family can experience, because you are moving from the known and going to the unknown, and between moving from the known and the unknown is a reason. Now you got to make sense out of the reason. Because if you can't make sense out of the reason, then your grief can be so intense. You can turn it in on yourself. Because I'm sure that many of us have had people say, "Man, I'm wondering if I made the right decision or not." Why? I moved from the known, which cradled me and gave me a sense of wholeness and protection and safety. I'm going to this new place because it's a job or going to school or whatever it is. But in between is that reason, the job, the school, whatever. And so you got to make sense of it. And that thing can ride you for months, years. You can say, "Man, it's been 5 years and I'm still wondering if I made the right decision." And so we discover that while you are still in the valley of contemplation, you cannot be using your intellect to its fullest, because it's still internalized in here, trying to figure this thing out, trying to figure it out like right here. And so you can't be internalizing and externalizing at the same time. If you don't believe that, here's what it is. You try breathing out and breathing in at the same time. You cannot. So you cannot internalize and externalize at the same time. Externalizing means it gives people a sense of who you are. Internalizing gives you a sense of who you are. That's what it is. And so grieving who you are, your sense of who you are, it is important. And so when you do that, the kids, you got to, depending on where they are in the school system, some kids have a lot of friends. In the school that they're moving from, maybe they were top tier kids, in sports and music and class and friendship and all this kind of stuff. Maybe they were the reference person. Everybody likes Johnny and all. Everybody loves Susie, that kind of stuff. And when you move, you discover you go down to the bottom of the totem pole because nobody knows you. And everybody walk by you in the hallway. They don't sit by you in the lunchroom at the other place. Everybody was trying to sit by you. Everybody was trying to walk beside you. So when you do that, your children, I know we like to say they are resilient, but our children, they go through a lot of losses in that, and they deal with that. And some of the ways they deal with that is it will show up in a number of ways, especially if grandma is back where they left and the dog is back where they left from, And so those people, those staples which kept them alive, down here, I can't walk the dog. Because we used to live in a house back there. Now we live in an apartment down here. Can't have dogs in this apartment. So what do I do now? My grandma's not just walking around the street, around the corner. Now I don't have grandma. And I don't have my phone. And all this kind of stuff. Disconnected from people that are important to you. So these children, wherever they are on their growth and developmental continuum in the school system, in their social system, it can be tough. It can be rough. And I'm talking kind of broadly because I can't be specific until I'm talking to somebody who's got something going on. That's when I can say, okay, well, listen, what does it feel like for you not to be able to have your friends holler at you down the hallway and your favorite teacher. Now you miss your favorite teacher. These things are very personal. Maybe they've never had people that taken this kind of interest in them before. Now they've lost all of that. All right. So let's move on. While the reason for moving can be positive and even desirable, such as a job promotion, the purchase of a new home or retirement, connecting with a new community, school, church, neighbors, reestablishing a new friendship network, loss of familiar points of reference available, and adequate resources. You can lose all of those things. Loss of identity. And then moving is almost always chaotic and stressful because of the degree of uncertainty. And if there is one thing on the planet that I know unequivocally that is for certain, there is this one thing that I know is absolutely certain. It is life is uncertain. Certainty is uncertain. That I know. That is an absolute scientific fact. We don't know. I can tell you, no one of us on this program here knows what will happen 2 minutes from now. It is uncertain, and the degree of uncertainty, can be chaotic. Why? Because we as people love to be able to predict with certainty. It gives us a sense of peace of mind. It lets us feel safe, and we can develop a trusting relationship with ourselves and with the other people and with the community. Moving is almost okay. All right, so we did that. So let's go on to the next slide and see what we have there on our next slide. Okay. All right. For infants and preschool children, stress comes from the loss of familiarity, and therefore they may be easily frightened and fragmented by strange surroundings. Why is it for infants? Because when a child is in the infantile stage, not infantile, but in the infant stage, they are in the business of creating an attachment. And in order for them to create an attachment, okay, the object, a doll, a dog, whatever it is, the object must be consistent and be available to them. The unavailability of this object that they have attached themselves to, that give them a sense of safety and peace and joy and make them feel good when that object is not available. Chaos internally. All right. So it's harder on infants like that, as you get to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. When you're 18, hey, listen, I'm cool, dude. I'm good. Man, I've been down this road before. You can reorganize your life and say, talk about how you want to do what you want to do, and be in greater control over your life. Okay. All right. So elementary school, same kind of stuff. School age children often becomes attached to people and place and things. So it's the same kind of thing, depending on where they are on the growth and developmental continuum and the socialization. The same with adolescent, however, have the most difficulty in relocation due to the loss of identity. By this time, it's not the identity that the young children and the babies have. That's not the identity. They identify with external objects. Babies, infants, identify with external objects. Adolescent, they identify with internal object now. Why? Because they're beginning to say that which is outside of me, if I like what's going on outside of me, I will internalize it and make that external world my world. So now they begin to deal with that. And so any loss of anything that would give them a good sense of who they are can be devastating to them, and that female generally are more negatively impacted by moving than males because of their overall nurturing capacity. Females attach more and are easily than males do. And so as females grow up, they find more people and they, to take care of. And so it gives them a sense of satisfaction. Who am I going to find in my new location to take care of me so that I can feel the way that I want to feel? And I don't want you to think that people are using people, places, and things, to give them a sense, to give them a good picture of themselves. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying here is that different people have different requirements in their lives or about their lives to make them feel achieved. Okay. And females are definitely the species, or that I call caretakers. They are caretakers. And caretakers, good caretakers, okay, will invest everything they have because they're no longer investing from the outside; they're investing from the inside. Let's go on with another slide here. Stressors associated with loss and change in employment. I think we kind of went down through some of those. Okay. Our job comes with a title, position, role, capacity to give us a sense of well-being, a place in society, purpose, and social status. You know how it goes. It does that. It does it. And I'm going to say this here, and I'm hoping that it won't be offensive to anybody, but there is some truth to this. I think I'm going to say, let me put it this way. I met a guy. We were working out at the gym together, and met him for the first time in the gym. We just introduced ourselves, and he introduced himself. The guy had to be in his 70s or so. A couple of old men. So the guy introduced himself as, "My name is Coach so-and-so." And then he said to me, "Man, I retired from coaching high school football 15 years ago. But they still call me Coach. And I call myself Coach." And here we go again, okay? Sometimes a title that is associated with a job, and I'm not saying it's good, I'm not saying it's bad, but for some people, the title gives them a sense of purpose long after the purpose is over. But it also gives them a picture of themselves, which define them in a way that people can look up to. If they don't have that, never had that when they were growing up, they were always depressed, pushed down in society. Of course, a title like coach is elevating and it's going to be good for them and good to them. So and it gives them a good peace of mind, a good sense of self. So it's not always a bad thing. It's not always a bad thing. Okay, let's move on to the next slide here. It says job loss. Okay, we talked about that, and the reason I'm saying this, because I've been talking about a lot of different things mixed in with a number of different things. These feelings, experiences should not be left to dissipate, go away by themselves. It is important to actively find and engage in positive methods of grieving. It is so important. Not methods that's going to create more distance and so therefore create more grieving, but that you can use to work through whatever it is you're going through. And you can't always do that by yourself. So you find some really good people. It does not have to be a therapist. You can find some really good people. Animals are very good at helping people work through losses. As a matter of fact, there are some programs here that they've trained their animals to just sit and look at people, and they tilt their head this way, tilt their head this way, and this depending on what is being said. They've been trained, and then people get up from there and say, "Man, this is great." I didn't have nobody talking back at me. I didn't have nobody cussing me out. I didn't have nobody, trying to make me look like crazy. This dog just sat there, just looked at me, ears went up, tail wagged a little bit. Great. There are a variety of ways, but the whole point of this is when it comes to grief, please don't hold it in. Okay? All right. Now, this is just an introduction. The other weeks we're going to get into specific areas. All right. Okay. Major personal losses. Major personal losses. We all know about death. We all know about death. Right. This was taken from some research. Some research that was done a while back as major personal losses. All right. And death, of course, came out as number one. So we won't belabor that point. But, divorce came out pretty high. And I'm going to tell you why divorce came out pretty high. From a biblical perspective, Adam looked at Eve and said, "She is bone of my bone, and she is flesh of my flesh." Now, God did not tell Adam who she was. He did not say because she was taken from you. None of that happened. But he just knew that. Okay. So in other words, to say she's bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh, what Adam was saying, she is the other part of me that is living outside of me. All right? She is the other part of me that's living outside of me. Because when God made Eve, that was a paradigm for marriage. She is the other part of me that's living outside of me. So I must be the other part of her that's living outside of her because there's more of me left. Right? So we have his world, her world. If you don't come together, you have clashes like this. But the whole idea of marriage is to come together like this. There's more about that we can talk about another time. All right, more of this. So when you get married, you consolidate yourselves. Now, I want you to hear what I'm saying. When it comes to divorce, I have never known, in all the years I've been doing this kind of work, I've never known a person to divorce a person because of who the person was. We divorce people because of what they did, when they did, where they did, how they did, who they did it with, and to. We divorce people because we are having a problem with their behavior. There are all kinds of stories I can tell you about that, but I won't go into that tonight. So we divorce people because of it. And what happens when we divorce people because of their behavior? It means that we got married to the who-ness of the person as much as we could understand. Who is this person? And because of this person, I want to marry this person. And so we give ourselves to this person in their who-ness. My who-ness and my wife's who-ness come together to make our who-ness. Okay. And so when we do that, when I start acting the fool, she does not get what she wants from me. And the part of me that she has invested in me is no longer available to her. The part of her that she has invested in me is no longer available to her. So she is grieving the loss of herself that she requires me to be available to her so she can actively be in touch with it. The same thing with death. Same thing that, you go to funerals, people are telling all these stories about, oh man, so-and-so, man, I remember how we did this. What you're really doing is reliving the part of yourself that was in that person, which is no longer available to you. And you require that person to be alive and well so you can continue doing what it is you were doing, because if they can't do that, then that part of you that you invested in them so that you could have a good life, it's no longer available to you. So now you are grieving the loss of the person, you're grieving the loss of yourself that's attached to the person. Same thing, same kind of thing with divorce. You are not just grieving the unavailability of a person, you're grieving the unavailability of yourself, which is no longer there because the person is not there to activate it inside of you. All right. Okay, let's take a look. Let's go back to that slide and go down through this one here, the rest of it's real quickly. Marriage. Oh man, this one is funny. This one is funny. When I'm doing premarital counseling, here's what I tell people. Grieve the loss of being single. Grieve the loss of your singleness, because I remember before we got married, man, my friends could call me, yo, dude, what you want to do? I said, man, I'll be there in 30 minutes, man. I'll be out. I'll be, my wheels will be just screaming down now. Why? Because I could do that. I did not have an accountability to anybody else. And those are the kind of things I could do when I was single. But then I got married. Then I got married. It's like our first child. Our first child, when our first child came along, before we had children, me and my wife, we could go places. Our friends would call, say, yeah, we can be there. We can be there. We can be there. We were social butterfly. Yeah, we can be there. We can be there. We were young and, halfway crazy, but we could be there, And then our first child came along, and who cried for 7 weeks straight. And then I remember one time they were going to a picnic in the park, and they said, "Hey, man, we got a few of us go to the park for a picnic. You're going to be there?" We said, "No." What do you mean, no? No, man. This little boy here, he just fell asleep about 5 minutes ago. We are not going to wake him up. Grieve the loss of independence because somebody else is in your life. You hear what I'm just saying? So grieve the loss of being single when you get married, because you can't be single living a married life, and you can't be married living a single life. So you got to decide which way you want to come down on this thing here. Yeah, we're going to come down. So grieving that. So before you get married, I tell people, take an inventory of the things you did or you are doing while you are single, and what joy and pleasure you get out of these things. What can you take into your marital experience and still enjoy? What do you have to leave behind that you cannot connect with? So grieve. It is a major change, major change. Grieve the loss of being single, because if you don't, you cannot embrace marriage, because your singleness and the good times you used to have, it's always going to come knocking at the door and say, yo, dude, and man, you're going to have to fight that bad boy away. And if you can't fight it away, you're going to find yourself, married, but living single, So you grieve that, and you say, and when you grieve that, you say, okay, I am now ready to calculate what I can do and can't do, calculate my losses, because there are some losses. I can calculate that. And now I'm ready, because now what I'm ready to do is the space that something was in while I was single, I'm going to find something during my marriage life to put in there to create a nice balance. Nice balance. All right? A nice balance. Okay. I'm just going to go down through these real quick. There's some more here, and just call it a day. Childbirth. I just talked about childbirth with our son. Childbirth, it changed a lot of things. Your whole physical structure changed. A lot of things changes. Family life changed. Your personal life changed. Your interpersonal life changed. A lot of things will change. Here's a big one. Children leaving home. We have this thing we call empty nest syndrome. I used to think a long time ago that empty nest syndrome started when the kids go off to college. Wrong. Totally wrong. The empty nest syndrome starts when your child starts to tell you no. They are living in the house, but their mindset says, I'm leaving you. I have something else I need to do over here. I'm not with you. That is an empty nest syndrome, because you're not together like this anymore. And so the whole idea of preparing for the empty nest syndrome should come when you bring that baby home from the hospital and you start your attachment to that baby. Start thinking about the empty nest syndrome, because as they grow, they are starting to individuate. The more they individuate, the more they leave you, the more they're separated, the more they want to do their own thing. Their own person comes into play. And all of this happens when these things happen. The empty nest syndrome is happening. Why? Because now they're coming home. Instead of being home with you all, either they're coming home at 8, then they get a little bit older, they're coming home at 9, then they get a little bit older, then they're coming home at 10, then they get a little bit older, then they don't come home for the night. So you understand what I'm saying here? So the empty nest syndrome, it doesn't have a specific start date, except for it begin to frame it in your mind that at some point this child will leave home. And here is why I'm telling you this, because if you do your job well, all of us as parents do a fantastic job trying to get our kids through school and music and all these other things that they do. We're trying to do all of that. And the degree to which we succeed or they succeed is the degree to which they will leave home. So when we do a good job at raising our children right and getting everything done right, we are actually in the process of the empty nest syndrome, but we wait until they go to college. No. Grieve each of their steps that they separate, a separation that they individuate. Grieve all of those, because you're doing a good job. So children leaving home. Aging, real quick. Aging as we get older. Lord, I know all about this. There are things that when I go to the gym, and I look back at when I was 15, 16 in the gym, 20, 21, 30, and when I look back, I said, man, I remember when, and I'm looking back and I'm feeling real bad because I can't do those things anymore. Grieve the fact that I can't do what I used to do, but take courage, feel good about the fact that, take hope that at least I did it. Hold on to great memories was what I'm trying to tell you here. Great memories, wonderful things, great memories. Finances. You remember in 08 when the market crashed? Yes. Yeah. Grieve your losses. Don't act like you like you don't like being poor. Okay. So grieve your losses. Okay. And then health concerns. Last one. Health concerns. Hey, what can I say? We all know about health concerns. Grieve these health concerns. Not only should the symptom bearer, the one who's having the health concern, grieve, but the symptom sharer, who are the caretakers, they need to do some grieving also, especially if we're talking about family members, taking care of family members, the younger people taking care of the elderly. All right. So listen, I'm just so thankful that you hung in there with me tonight. Next week, I believe I'm going to continue with part 2. When we get in with part 1, there's some phases that we're going to be going through. We're going to go down through these, and we can really take a look. And I'm at some things. And while we're doing that, I'm hoping that that you will have some more specific questions. Tonight was general. Thank those of you who are online and those of you who put some questions up or some thoughts up. I really enjoyed that. It gave me something else to look at, to break the monotony of just going down through the slides. It gave it body, it gave it character, it gave it substance. And I do thank you so much. So join me next week when we'll continue through with this whole matter of grieving. All of us are grieving and have gone through, had experiences that have taken us through grief. Some of us are not grieving very well. And the way we grieve is to anesthetize ourselves and just trying to get rid of the pain, but the pain don't go away. It just subsides for a while until the anesthesia wears off and it comes back waving at you. And then oh man, you're back. Let me take some more. You're back. Let me take some more. That's when we call people addicts when they're really not addicts. Don't call them addicts. What they have is a dependency. They are dependent on something from outside of themselves to put inside themselves so that they can have a good internal experience. That's what it is. You wear crutches when your feet are broken. You're not a crutch addict. You're just dependent on some crutches. Okay. All right. Great stuff. And so I'm going to shut it down now. I'm going to shut it down. And I thank you all for just hanging in there with me this week. Great session from my point of view. Great session because of your input. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. All right. Be good. See you on the next time. God bless. Bye-bye.